Hey there, it's Shauna. I hope you're doing great. Welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for February 26th. So this week I've titled Pushing Boundaries, and I'm calling it that because this week you may have extra capacity to push some outer boundaries, maybe push some inner boundaries, and just work with the limitations that you have. So it'll be an interesting week. We have a full moon, and we also have some aspects involving Saturn, which is where the whole boundaries issue comes in. So I'm excited to share the astrology of this week with you, and then I have 3 tips for you to have an amazing week. So let's get started. We start off the week with a bit of a surprise. So Venus will conjunct Uranus. It's exact on Wednesday, so middle of the week before we get to the full moon. And that means that it's building towards Wednesday. So Venus is the planet that represents relationships, love, beauty, harmony, but it's really about what it is that we're attracted to, what it is that we enjoy, and it also symbolizes finances and things like this as well too. So it's all of the things, the material things that we enjoy, but then also social connection as well. And Uranus is the planet that denotes a surprise, something unexpected coming in, where typically there's like a synchronistic kind of element to it. And so depending on how comfortable you are with change, you may experience this different than someone that loves change, but it's definitely something kind of like coming out of the blue. And so so I encourage you to embrace this, to like look for if there's something that you can do differently or be open to. Uranus really encourages us to be open to new things and to be open to looking at things differently. It may just be looking at something differently. And of course that depends, you know, how this manifests depends on your personal makeup and what's actually happening in your life. But I would say definitely earlier in the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, look for ways where you can change things up a little bit, where maybe you can meet new people and take advantage of that like surprise synchronistic kind of element. And then the other thing we have happening this week is we have a full moon in the sign of Libra. This is happening on Saturday. And so it's exact Saturday, the 31st of March at 5:37 a.m. Pacific time. And it's exact at 10 degrees of Libra. So this full moon, there's a few different things going on that I want to share with you. So full moon in general first is about culmination. It's a time of celebration. It's where the moon reaches its maximum capacity for light. So everything's been building and building and building within the lunar cycle up to this point. It's like maximum capacity. And so you may feel like that. You may feel like things are at their maximum capacity, like you've given a lot, and now is the time to really appreciate that and to enjoy what it is that that you've put the time in for, and things, the progress that you've made over the past few weeks. The other element of this is that it's in the sign of Libra, and so Libra is very much related to Venus kind of things. Libra is ruled by Venus, and so Libra is about relationships, it's about social connections, and Libra is always seeking balance. So there's always this element of trying to find balance. Ironically, you may feel a little bit out of balance toward this weekend with the full moon, or feel like you're kind of trying to keep all of the pieces together or afloat, and you know, make sure that everyone's happy and that your time is well spent and all of these things. The other part of this is that this full moon is basically making an aspect to Saturn and Mars. And so this adds in like another layer. It's like a layer cake of the full moon this week. And so Saturn is about boundaries, limitations. It's about material form. And Mars is also about boundaries in a different way. It's about self-assertion and courage and setting a boundary on what's okay and what's not okay. And it's more about personal boundaries, Mars is, versus Saturn is more about the boundaries that feel imposed on us by like work and life and school and family obligations and all of these things. So I like to think of Mars as like personal boundaries, and Saturn is like social boundaries, if that makes sense. So what does all of that mean? So what that means is that this full moon may be a time where life feels very full and it feels like there's a lot of commitments, and it may feel like there's a lot to do. And so what I would say is to notice where it feels like you're being stretched too thin, and where it is that you need to do the thing that you need to do, and then where it is that that a boundary does need to be drawn, where you need to say no, or you need to reprioritize things. When Saturn is involved, it definitely asks us to prioritize our time. Saturn is also related to time, and so things may come up this week where you need to like retool exactly what's happening and how you spend your time and how you prioritize things. So that leads me to the last part of the astrology this week, is that we'll have Mercury, which is retrograde currently, conjunct the Sun. And so this is a part of the Mercury retrograde cycle, and this is all happening in aspect with the full moon. So it's really interesting because Mercury conjunct the Sun normally during a full moon wouldn't be a major event, but it's definitely worthy of note because Mercury is retrograde right now. So just like another element to pay attention to, and I think that it adds another emphasis on prioritizing time, how it is that that you have the structure of your life, how it is that you plan things. And so I have some tips for you to really manage this energy, because I feel like it may feel quite intense, and just again, like life is very full, but I know that you can handle it, and I know that it's just a matter, because Saturn is involved here, Mars is involved here, it really just feels like a matter of setting the structure and setting a solid foundation so that you're setting yourself up for success as much as you can. And of course, nothing is perfect, but I think this week is definitely about like pushing your boundaries, pushing your edges, and then shifting things where they need to be shifted. Okay, so I have 3 tips for you. So tip number 1 is to embrace your limitations. And I know this may not sound like fun, but it is to your benefit, especially when we have, again, Saturn and Mars involved. So I say embrace your limitations because I want you to really accept the way that things are right now, because there may be things that come up this week that are kind of like non-negotiable boundaries, things that are maybe like deadlines or commitments, like something that you committed to a long time ago and you're like, fuck, I don't want to do that anymore, but now is too late to back out, etc. I want you to really focus on embracing those kinds of limitations, because once you do, and once you engage with it, it actually becomes easier because it's taking up less psychic energy of trying to push it away. So that's tip number 1, is to embrace your limitations. Tip number 2 is to push your boundaries. And so this may seem contradictory, but it's not. So what I mean by push your boundaries is I want you to think about where your boundaries are now. Like, when do you say no? When do you say I can't? When do you say I don't have time? And I would challenge you to like play with that a little bit. And is there something that you need to do or say or just think about this week that restructures that boundary that you set for yourself, that you put up towards others, whether that be in the workplace or socially or with family or friends, etc. And I don't know, maybe your boundaries are fine, but I think it's definitely worth noticing, because we have all of this energy involving Mars and Aries and the full moon. If there's a way that you can make your life easier, and if there's a way to say no to things that you don't want to do or don't need to do, you know, what's the best use of your energy? And that's really what pushing your boundaries is about, pushing that so that there's more space for you to exist. So that's tip number 2, to push your boundaries. And tip number 3 is to know hesitation versus fear. And I'm saying that because we have this full moon, beautiful full moon in Libra, and Libra as a sign is typically known for and a problematic side of being indecisive. The beautiful thing about Libra energy is that it allows us to really see both sides of a situation, to be diplomatic and just, and to really hear out the argument from both sides or the benefits of both sides. But at the same time, that can lead to lack of action because of indecision, because both sides sound good. So that I'm calling hesitation. And so I think there's a potential this week for hesitation, which is the Libra problematic side, or for fear, which is more related to Saturn and Mars. And sometimes our fear can inform us. Sometimes it's good to know, okay, no, I'm feeling fearful. That is not, like, this is a dangerous situation. And sometimes it's fear that just means that it's something that we value a lot. And so I want you to really get acquainted this week with when you feel any sense of stop, whether that is hesitation, whether that is fear, and the different nuances and what that means to you. And what you feel is going to be different than what I feel versus what someone else feels. And because there's so much potential for these kinds of things to come up, and there's lots of, like, life is very, again, full when we have a full moon, lots going on. I really want you to get familiar with what your internal navigation system feels like. And so that's tip number 3 for this week, is to know hesitation versus fear. And then I have, I want to read a quote to you. So this is working with the Saturn energy, and this is definitely related to pushing boundaries and embracing your limitations. So this is from the book called Women Who Run with the Wolves, one of my favorites, by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And this is from a story called, this is from the Crescent Moon Bears. This is also one of my favorite stories in here. So she says, "So it is good to take to the mountain when we don't know what else to do. When we are drawn to quests we know little about, this makes life and develops soul. In climbing the unknown mountain, we actually gain true knowledge of the instinctive psyche and the creative acts of which it is capable. That is our goal. Learning occurs differently for each person. But the instinctual viewpoint that emanates from the wild unconscious and that is cyclical begins to be the only one that makes sense and gives meaning to life, our lives. It unerringly informs us of what to do next. Where can we find this process that will free us? On the mountain." And so I like this a lot because it speaks to this process of doing things and one step at a time, and following the process even if it feels like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. That I just climbed the mountain, and sometimes that's unknown, sometimes we just see a few steps in front of us, but we must climb the mountain. That actually creates the knowledge and helps us to move forward. So I think that's some good, solid, meditative advice for this week. And then lastly, last little fun bit of this week is I'm going to draw an animal card for us. So this is from the Wild Unknowns Animal Spirit deck. And so I haven't picked this in advance. I'm gonna pick one now, and this is just an extra added little bit of guidance for us to meditate on throughout the week. Something to tie it up all nice and neat. Okay, one more. Oh, this is a good one. So I pulled the Cosmic Egg. Okay, so when I hold this up, I want you to really notice what you think of when you see it, and I'll tell you what I think of. But first I want you to just get your initial impression. So it's an egg, cosmic egg, with a little snake wrapped around it. You know what this makes me think of is, it's not exactly this, but do you know the medical symbol? I can't remember the name of it. Someone will comment and let me know. Where it's like there's this staff and then there's two snakes wrapping around it. This reminds me of that. And that image is the image of healing. It also represents the two different energy centers that start in the root chakra and that wrap around the chakras and move up to the head. It's represents in the chakra system or the energy system the balance of feminine and masculine, and the healing that can come when we balance these two different parts of us. The other part of this that I think is really interesting is the rainbow of colors and the fact that it's an egg. So this is interesting. So egg is about fertility, something waiting to be born, something gestating, and the snake around it is really fascinating too, because it's like there's something that is inherently like primal or transformative or something a little magical. I don't know. So you tell me what you think of, what this card means to you when you notice it. I think it's definitely one of the more special ones in this deck, so I'm glad that I pulled it. That was a good one. So, oh my gosh, that's all for this week. I'm wishing you an amazing week, and if you enjoyed this video, please share it with a friend. I love to get these messages out to as many people as possible. And then other resources that I have for you. If you want to listen more about the concept of boundaries and prioritizing, you can listen to the Neo Feminine TV episode where I talk specifically about those issues. I recorded that specifically because I knew that these transits would be happening, and so you can listen to that on iTunes or on my YouTube channel. I'll have links below for that. And then if you are interested in following the lunar cycles, you can still get my downloadable version of the 2018 Moon Journal. So I'll have a link down below so that you can get that on Etsy. I am all sold out of the spiral bound version. I sold out of that earlier in the year, but you can get the PDF version anytime, and it has reflection questions and guidance and a little space for journaling for every single full moon and every single new moon throughout the whole year of 2018. And then also other full moon things. I'm hosting a full moon meditation circle this Friday. So that'll be this Friday, the 30th at 7 p.m. and that's at Moonlight Beach Overlook in Encinitas, California. So if you're here, come and join me. It'll be super fun as always. And then lastly, if you're interested in getting into these concepts for you personally, based on your personal astrology and your personal transits, what's happening for you at a deeper level, you can contact me for a reading. I'll have information below, and you can find all the different options and book that on my website. So that's all for now. Wishing you an amazing week and sending lots of love. I'll talk to you soon. Namaste.